Hey everyone, welcome back. In this video, I want to talk about concurrency and asynchronous programming, especially as they apply to Internet of Things applications. But first, what exactly is concurrency? People often confuse concurrency with parallelism because the definitions can seem similar, but in reality, the two concepts are very different. Part of the confusion here, I think, has to do with the definition of the word concurrent as it applies outside of computer science. So, when someone says that they had a scheduling mishap and accidentally agreed to two concurrent appointments, in English that tends to mean that the appointments are overlapping or that they're scheduled at the same time. But in computer science, that definition is technically parallelism. When we say that we're doing parallel programming, we mean that we're writing code that intends to execute two or more instructions at the exact same time. By contrast, when we say that we're doing concurrent programming, we mean that we're writing code where the order in which things are executed doesn't really matter. So going back to the appointment scheduling example, according to the computer science definition, those two appointments would still be concurrent even if they're scheduled one after another, as long as the order of the scheduling doesn't matter. Suppose they were meetings. If the outcome of meeting A is the basis for meeting B, then obviously the order matters, and they aren't concurrent. But if they were meetings about two completely different topics, and neither of them depend on the outcome of the other, then they are concurrent. And if you could be in two meetings at the same time, you could attend them in parallel. But the fact that you can't be in two meetings at the same time hopefully highlights the difference between concurrency and parallelism. They are closely related concepts, though. If you're doing parallel programming, meaning you're actually executing multiple instructions at the same time, it would be really problematic if one of those instructions depended on the result of another instruction. So there's definitely some overlap here. Just keep in mind that it is possible to run concurrent programs even if you only have one CPU. And even more confusingly, it's possible to simulate parallelism using concurrency. If we represent our tasks as small concurrent units of code, we can toggle between them to create the perception of parallelism even when there is none. In fact, this is basically how your operating system allows you to run way more programs at the same time than you have CPU cores. It toggles between their execution concurrently. And the purpose of doing this isn't to speed things up. In fact, doing those context switches, toggling between programs, usually adds overhead. It slows things down a bit. Instead, the purpose is to make things responsive and to allow multiple tasks, or programs, to coexist. I mean, it would be pretty annoying if you could only run one program at a time, or if the number of tabs you're allowed to have open in your browser was limited by the number of cores in your CPU. That would be a terrible user experience. So, modern computer systems are heavily concurrent. But how does this help us with Internet of Things applications? Well, let's look at an example problem and see if we can't learn something about concurrency along the way. Think back to the first program you ever wrote for a microcontroller. If you're like most of us, that program was probably just blinking an LED. And if you were using the Arduino platform, your code probably looked something like this. This program is incredibly simple because it's really only accomplishing one task, which is to blink one LED. So let's make it more complex. Let's blink 3 LEDs. And to make it even more interesting, let's blink 3 LEDs at different rates. As soon as you add the requirement that the LEDs blink at different rates, the problem fundamentally changes. We've just added concurrency. How do we solve this problem on a device that only has one CPU? Well, we know that it's possible by toggling between the different tasks. It would be awesome if we could take the code in our main loop and copy and paste it for each LED. But that wouldn't work in this case, mainly because of the delay function. You see, delay is a type of function known as a blocking function. This means that as long as it's executing, no other task can make any progress. So let's say that the first LED is supposed to blink every 1000 milliseconds, and the second LED is supposed to blink every 123 milliseconds. If you call delay for 1000 milliseconds at any point in the loop, it'll be impossible for the second LED to blink any faster than that. The easiest way to avoid this is to just not use delay. In fact, blocking functions of any kind in concurrent systems are generally a bad idea. You want to be able to break your tasks up into pieces that execute really quickly so that they don't hog the CPU and interfere with other tasks running concurrently. In this case, the solution is to ask the CPU what time it is, and if enough time has elapsed, you can toggle the LED. This does require keeping track of the last time you toggled each LED, but it has the benefit of being able to execute without blocking, and you can do this really quickly, once every main loop for every LED. The end result is the illusion of parallelism. Each LED is blinking at its own rate. You can also add way more tasks to that main loop and still have everything run smoothly as long as they're all non-blocking. For instance, you could add a task that checks the state of a button. This is a good example to explain what I meant earlier when I used the word responsive. If we use any blocking operation, like the delay function, and the user presses a button while it's blocking, they'll have to wait until the blocking operation is done before they can see any results from pressing the button. That just feels buggy and makes devices more difficult to use. So be nice and share the CPU by avoiding code that blocks. And sometimes this means breaking up your code into smaller work units. Maybe you have a really heavy computation that takes a long time because it has a loop of some kind in it. Say it has to loop over something 1,000,000 times. What you can do is only go through a portion of those iterations every main program loop instead of trying to do them all at once. This way the task can share the CPU. Another type of operation that can cause blocking is I/O. Let's say that you have a function that reads and returns a line from the serial interface. If you implement that as a single loop that keeps reading until it reaches a new line character, then you basically have no idea how long it'll take to complete. If it's a user typing in that data and they walk away before pressing enter, your entire system is blocking, waiting for input. This exact problem exists with network I/O too. Say you're trying to download some resource over the internet. If you try to do this all at once, you'll block until it completes and no other task can make any progress. For both of these situations, the solution is to handle the data as it's coming in, incrementally, instead of waiting for all of it. This way, you can still trigger some event after all of the data has been received without blocking other tasks. This concept is known as asynchronous I/O. And this is really the point I've been trying to get to here. For Internet of Things applications, you're typically dealing with multiple types of I/O. You might have Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or LoRa interfaces, various sensors that you're trying to read data from, and maybe you're controlling some relays or other physical mechanisms. Basically, applications that tend to be heavier on the I/O side of things than they are on the computation side of things. And this makes them a good candidate for concurrency. The question that remains is, are we using a good programming platform to support this type of concurrency? I would argue that Arduino isn't the right platform for this. If you look at most Arduino code out there, you look at the libraries and just the way that people tend to use the platform, it's pretty clear that the common use cases are much more deterministic and less concurrent. I'm not saying that you can't or shouldn't build these kinds of applications using Arduino, just that the platform wasn't really designed for this kind of stuff, and it'll be an uphill battle the more complex your application gets. So what alternatives are there? Well, if we can get away with using a complete Linux system, like the Raspberry Pi or Pocket Beagle, that would be great. But let's assume that we need something smaller that runs on less power, since those are common constraints for Internet of Things devices. For me, there are really only two alternatives to Arduino that give you better access to concurrency features. One of those is MicroPython. This is an implementation of Python that's designed to run on microcontrollers. The YouTuber Andreas Spies recently did an interesting video about MicroPython and the role it might play in replacing Arduino as microcontrollers progress. In fact, I'll link to that video at the end of this because I think it's worth watching. MicroPython does have some nice features that would make it a good candidate for this kind of asynchronous I/O. It even has a trimmed down port of the popular async I/O library called micro async I/O. And it supports the async and await keywords, as well as generator functions, which are how modern Python code tends to manage concurrency. And I'm personally a really big fan of Python. It was the programming language that really started my career as a software developer. I've written web applications in that ecosystem for years, and it's been a lot of fun. That being said, it has a lot of strengths, but concurrency really isn't one of them. I've seen multiple attempts at concurrency in Python over the years, and none of them have really had much staying power. There's been Twisted, Tornado, Async.io. The language even added keywords for supporting asynchrony, but they haven't really been widely adopted. Most of the big Python projects out there are still using blocking synchronous I/O. There are probably multiple reasons for this, but one of them, no doubt, is that it's still kind of clunky to do asynchronous I/O in Python. And once you take that leap, you have to go all in and make your entire project asynchronous. So is it possible to do this kind of concurrency in Python? Absolutely. But I still don't think it's the right tool for the job here. If you've watched my other videos, you may have realized that recently I've been increasingly using a platform named Espruino. And the reason for this has a lot to do with my interest in Internet of Things applications and concurrency. Espruino is a JavaScript implementation designed to run on microcontrollers. And of all of these platforms, I think that JavaScript has the best characteristics for dealing with concurrency. If you think about where JavaScript came from, that actually makes a lot of sense. It evolved in the environment of client-side web applications. Modern web pages are regularly posting all of your private data to creepy remote servers and retrieving JSON objects from various API endpoints, or streaming events over WebSocket connections, all the while remaining available for the user to click like and subscribe buttons or to animate something on the page. Those kinds of demands are remarkably similar to Internet of Things applications. And in case you're curious, this is what that independently blinking LED project would look like in Espruino. The reason it's so simple is that JavaScript has a built-in event loop. This is similar to how we handle things in Arduino, but much more robust. It also has built-in scheduling, which allows you to create intervals or timeouts, all of which is done asynchronously. And the built-in I/O routines are also asynchronous. You can build complex concurrent applications without having to really even think about it. That's just how the language behaves. So maybe you're like me and you have similar requirements for I/O and responsiveness. You might want to check out Espruino. Or if you're more comfortable with Python, check out MicroPython and Async.io. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think about this stuff in the comments below. And until next time, bye!